Hi everybody, Dina here, littlewidow.com, the littlest widow on Instagram. It is freezing, so I have a sweatshirt on again. I apologize. I look really schleppy half the time, but you know, it is what it is. It's rainy and cold. It feels like January, but it's November, so whoo-hoo, good one. It's gonna be a long winter. Winter is coming. So we're gonna do a reading tonight. I have one of my favorite decks that I have a duplicate of. It's the Alchemical Tarot by Robert Place. I opened the box and smudged the cards just to be safe. I know that if I just opened the box on camera, we could have done one of those, you know, could have gotten those like people who love box opening stuff to watch, but alas, I did not have the foresight. I don't think we don't need that. We don't need that anyway, right? That's kind of a weird thing. I haven't shuffled it yet, so I'm going to shuffle the Fools right there on the top as it should be. So I'm going to do some proper shuffling while we chat. It means we have to talk a little bit. There's some really weird energy around tonight. I feel off. I feel very off. So hopefully this reading works. I don't know what's going on. So there was a full moon really early Friday morning / late Thursday night. Thursday was Thanksgiving here in America, and I don't know, like everything's really weird. The moon is still in Gemini. This is the third night now that it's been there, so it's getting towards the tail end. But you know, it's making a nice angle to Venus. However, Uranus is squaring the nodes right now. I don't know if that's what this weird energy is that I'm feeling, but it's given me like some severe anxiety. I gotta be honest, and I know a couple other people are saying the same thing. I have some friends who are like just totally like torqued out right now, and I feel it. Like I probably should have gone for like a giant run or something, but it's raining, and so instead I'm drinking. I opened a really nice bottle of Shiraz from 2011, and it's quite tasty. So that's what's happening there. So tonight we have a career question. I just felt like this deck was the right one to use for some reason. It was just my gut instinct. I will say this now because I will use this deck a lot. I love this deck. It is a little hard to find, but not as hard as that Delos one that I like so much. But still, it's a little tricky. You have to kind of get it through third-party sellers, places. But so this is the 4th edition of the Alchemical Tarot from Robert Place, and some of the associations of these cards are a little bit different than the traditional ones. So I mean, perhaps I shouldn't switch decks around so much on you guys, but I don't know. When I do readings for people, I kind of just go with my gut on what deck I should use for them specifically, and I personally really love this one, and it was my instinct on what to use tonight. So that's what I'm going with. When I say that the cards are a little bit different, so he really uses kind of the more alchemical definitions of things. You know, a lot of tarot is based on Hermeticism, and just that whole, you know, place where kind of Kabbalah meets Hermeticism. I told you I was off tonight. Anyway, so some of the meanings of these cards are a little bit different than what you would normally get. Not all of them, but some cards, like the 5 of Swords, for example, I pulled earlier today. And in this deck, it's the blacksmith. He's mending something. He kind of takes the rest of the 4 and the motion of the 6 and like makes it kind of cohesive in the 5. Whereas in the other decks, the 5 is, you know, it represents a struggle or a hollow victory sometimes or something like that. So a couple cards are like that in this deck where they just have a different association. So I'm just mentioning that because it's the first time we're using this deck in our reading. So if you see me pull something, obviously I will say why I'm making the association that I am, but there are some things in this deck that I glean a different meaning from them if I pull them using this versus something else. You know, like the nine of wands and the 10 of wands too in this deck. Like they're a little bit different. 7 of pentacles is a little bit different in this deck. So, you know, it does make a difference to me. I think your deck is very important, actually. I mean, I do always associate back to the traditional meanings of the cards. And beyond that, I associate back to the suits and the numerical values and the numerology of them more than anything else, to be honest. You know, I don't always think the 3 of Swords has to be bad, for example. I think the 2 of Swords is a stalemate, and the 4 of Swords is some kind of, you know, meditative contemplation. There has to be action in the middle. You know, and that action, I don't think it necessarily has to be as painful as we make it out to be. The 3s are typically, they're an action point. They're breaking the stasis of the 2. So anyway, I use that primarily when I read. I kind of use the numerical association. Then I refer back to the you know, and I use the elements as well. And then I refer back to the major arcana card. And then I actually go deck specific after I take everything else into account, especially on a deck like this. I think that this one makes its definitions known, I think. So tonight we are asking a career question. I just wanted to get a real good shuffle and break these in. That's why I kind of did that tangent there. So tonight we're asking a career question for a friend of mine, actually. And he has just felt really stuck and in flux for quite a while. He's had the same job for about 8 years now, I want to say. And he really liked it for a long time. And then there were just a lot of changes and some nonsense. You know, they added a lot of hoops that he has to jump through now. And he went through like a really rough patch in the job a couple months ago. And it was rough enough that he started looking for other jobs. And as he saw what else was out there, he realized that, you know, he could potentially make more money, you know, for really not that much work. However, you know, it might have a lot more travel involved, which would be difficult for him because he does have little kids. So, but he's really feeling stuck and unhappy and like there's no growth. And he feels like he's under a lot of stress right now and that like business is tough and he's worried about it. So he kind of wants to see if we see any changes coming up in the near future for his career and what his career prospects really look like. So we're asking about his career tonight. Do we see him staying put? Do we see him staying put maybe in things improving? Or do we really see him doing something different and something new? I will say I don't see a lot of change in his astrological chart. You guys know I always check that, the 5 of Pentacles popped out. I will say this is a new deck, so I'm going to take a little bit less attention to that as I normally would because these cards are a little slippery. However, the 5 of Pentacles, that guy, he's a leper. It's a great representation of this card, right? There's a town right behind him, but he's not in the town. He's all alone. So the 5 of Pentacles, it tends to represent monetary problems or worry about money. It can also represent a poverty mindset or just not realizing how good you have it. In any case, it's not a super positive card for sure. Sometimes it does have nice connotations in a relationship reading because it can kind of be like, it can certainly be not realizing what you have in front of you, and that would be a negative, but it can also be like me and you against the world, babe. So there's that, but we're doing a career reading. So the 5 of Pentacles is not the best card to pop out. So we're just gonna keep that in mind, that did jump out on us. So I think maybe monetary worries are probably at the base of this question, more so than he wants to make known. I do know he has a big mortgage. I do know his wife does not make much money. I do know he has child support. So I'm sure all of that's a factor. And if business is not good, he's probably making less. So, all right. Let's see what we got. Show me what you got. The 6 of Swords. It's a nice card. The Eight of Cups. So here is an example. Well, so the fact that it's coming up with the Six of Swords, I'm going to take kind of seriously, but here's another example of how this deck is a little bit different. So the Eight of Cups is typically a card of moving on, and I am going to take it that way, actually. I think in this reading, probably anyway. In this deck, though, he's the potter. I mean, he's actually making things. It's kind of more, it's a little bit more like the Eight of Pentacles in this card, but emotionally, you know, he's like an emotional craftsman. But I do always carry that association of moving on from a situation with it, because that is the traditional meaning of the card, kind of. The Seven of Swords is crossing. It's a sneaky little card. Knight of Wands on the bottom, or staffs as they call them in this deck. The Knight of Cups, vessels, is behind us here. Queen of Swords is above. Temperance is before. I love that card in this deck. It's really pretty. Temperance is kind of the balancing of opposites. It really is the act of alchemy. Kind of the Magician or Temperance would be that. It's kind of like tempering metal. A lot of people, you know, it was originally called Prudence, and a lot of people kind of associate it with like the temperance movement, but it's not that as much as it was like tempering metal, or like how you temper chocolate. The King of Wands. The Nine of Wands, lots of wands. The Three of Cups, and the outcome is, ooh, the Eight of Swords. He's not going anywhere, I would not say. That is the Eight of Swords. This is one of my favorite depictions of this card. I love it. I actually wrote a post about the Eight of Swords, and I mentioned this specific card in it, that he is this, you know, majestic little demon, and he has this tiny little chain holding him to the ground there. He could fly away. He doesn't even realize that he can. That chain cannot hold that beast down. But he doesn't know that. Those swords are nowhere near him. Swords are mental. So the Eight of Swords is typically a card where we put ourselves in a mental prison. It's a prison of our own thoughts. It's a prison of our, you know, we trap ourselves. We limit ourselves. We obsess. But it is not, this Eight is not an Eight of movement. This is an Eight of, I'm stuck. I'm really stuck here. So I mean, we can go through the reading a little bit, but the fact that that's our outcome, I don't feel like there's a change coming in the near future. I feel even if he's unhappy, he's going to continue to feel unhappy and stuck, unfortunately, based on this reading. So the Six of Swords representing him, the King of Staffs representing him, working in the environment kind of the Eight of Cups, all of those things actually do represent movement. But they might be representing, in this case, more his instinct or his desire for movement rather than an actual change. You know, I think that's where he is, that he wants a change and he's ready for a change. But realistically, Temperance is really, that's not a fast card. That's taking it easy. That is, it's weighing opposites, right? It's I mean, not as much as justice is, but it's the blending of opposite things into a third new substance. It does, to me, signify change to some extent, but it's not a fast change. It's not a radical change. It's a slow and steady change. And often it's a change of attitude more than it is of circumstance. And so then at the end, again, we end up at the Eight of Swords. I mean, this guy is stuck. So I do not see a change coming up in the near future, unfortunately. Yeah. And I think that this card really illustrates how stuck he feels. And I wish it wasn't our outcome card. I wish it was somewhere else. But I just kind of see more of the same here. I don't think anything is going to change right now. Unfortunately, I think the only thing you can change right now is maybe your attitude of the situation, you know, and just try to not obsess We did get the Five of Pentacles, that poverty mindset popped out earlier. Maybe that's at play. Maybe things aren't as bad as you think they are. One thing about the Eight of Swords, again, swords are mental. So if they're mental, their thought processes, their ideas, it's self-limiting beliefs. So if you want change, I mean, this isn't saying that like oppressive circumstances beyond your control are going to stop you from change. That's not what this card is saying. This card is saying that your own brain is going to stop you from change. I actually, in the post that I did write about this, I quoted FDR, and he says, men are not prisoners of fate, they're prisoners of their own mind. That is a true story. So, you know, if you really truly want to change, it's not that it's impossible, but it's not forthcoming. It's certainly not going to come from outside. Any change that happens here is going to come from within, and you're going to have to get out of I would say your comfort zone first, right? And Eight of Swords, you've been there for 8 years. I mean, and we got 2 eights. So I don't see no outside force for sure is going to come in. Nothing's going to fall into your lap. I don't see any change here at all in the near future. And I think you're going to unfortunately continue to feel stuck. And if you truly do want to change, it's going to have to start inside first. You're going to have to kind of work through some stuff to get your mental state and your attitude to a point where that's ready to change before it'll manifest physically in your life, I would say. All right, that's what we got tonight. If you email me at thelittlewidow@icloud.com, I will do your reading one of these nights. Thank you. Good night.